Thank you very much.
I regress.
I have to really thank the people here for bringing me into this. I'm a newcomer. I've only been here for a year. And I'm going to talk without the microphone also because I move around pretty much. First off, let me say that there's a copy of this report in the center stair hall. So on your way out, please take a copy. It's a smaller version of what I put together for the school, but it does have all the awful photographs. I came in here, took hundreds of photographs. You know, I'd spend the weekend in here sometimes, being here 4 hours by myself, just taking it all in and taking a lot of photographs. But in putting this report together, you have to pick out the bad photographs. So there's a lot of information in here for you to take a look at, and some plans that I put together pointing directly to where some of the problem areas are. I also, before you leave, if you want to, I have two plans over here. I modified them a little bit and put the old room names in, like the guest chambers and the music room and the drawing room and so forth. You might be interested in taking a look at that. Now getting back to the building here, like I said, I'm really honored to be here as an architect. This is just a wonderful project to be involved in. Beyond that, what a wonderful group of people. Everybody I've met here, it's like a family. And it's almost like they're bringing me in as part of the family. So I want to thank Greg and everybody for that. Let me pull out some notes here. I do have notes. Trying to get the history of this building was very difficult. And I have binders full of information that I was printing out from different places, whether it was the State Historic Preservation Office, the Howard County Historian, or even going to the National Register. And a lot of information on the building. And a lot of it doesn't agree with each other. So then you have to kind of, look in other areas. So it has been fascinating. Now, the country school did put a book together, their 50th anniversary, called Keeping the Vision, and there's really a lot of excellent information in there, and I think it's, whoever was doing your research at the time, I think did a really good job, because that seems to be pretty accurate. The earliest history of this building as, and I almost hate to talk about this because most of you people have been here for almost your whole lives, so I've been here a year, so I'm sure there's things that you know that I certainly don't know yet. But the original part of this building was the L over here. It was just a very modest colonial home, and it's really interesting. John Dorsey, the son of Colonel Edward Dorsey of Annapolis, was the original owner of over 1,000 acres that stretched over through here. When he passed on, he willed, and he called that land Dorsey's Search. Upon his death, he willed 600 acres to his daughter Sarah Dorsey, who then married Henry Howard, who had land adjacent here. His land was called Second Discovery. And by Sarah Dorsey marrying Henry Howard, that brought the land into the Howard family. And then combined, it was called Howard's Resolution. So it's kind of a really interesting beginning. Once you get past like 1773, when this structure was built over here, and like I said, it was a modest colonial. It was a stone exterior. I'm asked many times, did it have that stucco finish? No, it didn't. It was just a stone, locally quarried stone on there. I do have some other boards that you won't be able to see it from there, but if you have any interest in it, you might want to come over here as the party winds down. This is just the chain of title from this building, and it goes from 1809 up to current with the Glenelg Country School. You look at all the times this building was purchased, sold, land added, land sold independently. You see a lot of names that you know in Howard County. There's been, a lot of, well-known Howard County folks who have owned this at some point or another. I mean, right down here at 1809, Nicholas Merriweather sold it to Charles Carroll. I mean, just amazing, and it just goes right up the list there. So if anybody has any interest, this will be left behind here. So there's, over that about 100 years, changed hands many times. Then getting to this glorious part of the building here, in 1848, it was now 585 acres. And the property was purchased by General Joseph Tyson. He was Postmaster General, Assistant Postmaster General, and he had a lot of other titles as a businessman. But after him and his wife went on a trip to Europe, they were really inspired by Scottish castles and so forth. So he hired an American architect named Thomas Eustace Walter. That was when he constructed this place, and Tyson's gave this Scottish castle a good Scottish name, Glenelg. He must have had a sense of humor also, because he liked that you could turn it around and it spelled the same thing backwards. I came up with something from the Athenian in Philadelphia just yesterday, and I think other researchers have tried going there. It's kind of a museum where they have all kinds of artifacts of old American history. And I really had to research to find this because it wasn't under Glenelg, but it's really an original plan. And I want to actually purchase this. I'd like to purchase 2 copies and give one to the school, unless you already have it.
I haven't seen that before.
I've never seen this before either. It's really fascinating. This is a drawing by Thomas Eustace Walter of the building. I printed this off my computer, so I'd be in complete trouble because of copyright, rules. So you never really saw this, but I would like to purchase one and give one to the school. It's quite interesting, and Greg or none of the others have seen this, but 2 things that are very interesting is that there was a porch which wrapped around all the way around to that point there that is no longer here. And I do know that there have been people saying that they thought there was some sort of a porch there. But that's one fascinating part. Another part is what is now our side porch that we're restoring as we speak. It had taken on a different shape early on, so I thought that was quite interesting. That's some of the interior walls over there that we didn't know about. Also pretty fascinating. Yeah, let me see here. When this building was nominated to be on the Federal Register, I read over that a number of times, and when it became a historic site in Maryland, there was one point that they kept saying on there that the house was designed by a yet unidentified architect. And that was in the late 1960s. So they didn't know who the architect was at that point. And so somewhere between then and now, it was determined that it was Thomas Eustace Walter. I don't know if that name means anything to anybody, but he was the architect of the Capitol. He was a Philadelphia architect, but he actually did the U.S. Capitol to what we see today. He did the 2 wings, and he did the big cast iron dome on top. So what you see when you look at the U.S. Capitol, that was the architect that designed this building. He also locally did the Washington Monument in Baltimore. Famous building to us Maryland folks.
It's an interesting note, just by happenstance, as you mentioned that my family renovated a church on 5th and I Street that Walter designed. That we did about 3 years ago. Put the steeple back on.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent.
Small world, Dad.
When
I didn't realize that he'd been here.
When I started researching him, I found out that in my hometown where I was born and raised, Reading, Pennsylvania, he did the courthouse, he did the Reading Museum, he did the jail, and there was one other building he did. So, I mean, he's been around. He's a Philadelphia architect. I don't think he went out west very often, but at that time, a lot of people were not going west. But I found out that there are a number of, most of his residences were in Philadelphia. He did a lot of work in Baltimore, but I heard that this was one of his 50 most favorite projects. So that was kind of neat. So in finding this out, what fascinates me is that here's an architect that, I mean, he founded the American Institute of Architects and was the second president. I mean, you know, this guy was around. I mean, he was the dean of American architecture from what was it? I think it was I don't see it now. Oh, between 1820, after the death of Benjamin Latrobe, which maybe some of you know his name, and the emergence of H.H. Robertson in the 1870s. So between 1820s and 1870s, he was what they considered the dean of American architecture, a very famous person. That fact alone makes this building very important. Now, I had a page here which has all this kind of poetic significance to the building. I won't get into that, but I do want to say that another thing I kept coming up with when they were talking about how important this building is, I would keep seeing the statement, compared to Andrew Jackson Davis's Glenelg masterpiece, which was perhaps the finest Gothic revival domestic building ever attempted in the United States, Glenelg is quite possibly the most significant example of rural Gothic revival villa in Howard County, if not all of Maryland. So Glenelg has a status about Howard County in Maryland, but what's this Glenelg? You know, I didn't know where Glenelg was, and they're saying it was truly the most picturesque American Gothic home ever constructed in the United States. So I started doing research on that, and this is my final picture here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. Gorgeous Scottish castle, you know, building. Well, I'll just quickly, we'll pass this around, but I want everybody to just take a quick look at it and look at the magnificence of this building. This building was from Towson, Maryland, right in our back door. So, beautiful, beautiful building, Richly. And now I'll pass it around. I look at that gorgeous, okay, maybe it's, all right, I see it's better than Glenelg Manor. But then I found out, unfortunately, Glenelg doesn't exist anymore. It was demolished in the 1930s, which is a true tragedy for something like that to be just demolished. So that leaves Glenelg Manor here. You know, where that puts us in the rankings, I don't know. But I just see something as glorious as that, and to think that it was torn down for whatever reason, you know, right, upkeep, maintenance, care. But you know, this building is just really magnificent. You know, I pretty much I kind of close here by saying that, you know, why is it worth saving? You know, because it's one of the finest examples of a Gothic revival home. You know, is it the fact that it was designed by one of the most famous architects in the mid-1800s? Is it the fact that it dates back to the early days of colonial Maryland, and that it has been passed down through the generations by Howard County's most notable and influential citizens? It's a very, very important building. and it needs to last for generations to come. So, you know, I know in the when you look through some of the federal information on buildings, that the owners must consider themselves as stewards to the building. You know, you might own it, you own the paper that says you own this building, but it's really your responsibility to keep it maintained and preserve it for the many generations to come. So, you know, that's what I say about this. Now, as far as if you want me to say what we're doing here, we spent a lot of time surveying this building. It is, you know, definitely very salvageable. Nothing drastically wrong with it. The front carriage entry, those big granite blocks, yeah, they're listing over. We can stop them from listing. They won't go any farther. A big issue is the exterior stucco. We're already addressing that. But really, until we get a bucket truck here and tap on every square foot, we won't know what the extent of restoration work will need to be done on it. And quite possibly, some will need full replacement, tearing it off and rebuilding it. Others maybe just putting a skin coat on it. So, you know, the exterior needs a lot of work. The windows need a lot of work. We started work on the side porch, which I think is going quite well. We're going to be starting work on the tower, which has been a serious problem over many years. And we've already done work above the music room and the one classroom there. If any of you were upstairs, you might have seen that one door frame that was you know, inches out of plumb, and we found out that floor had sunk about 3.5 inches at one point. So we pulled every board off. We numbered every one painstakingly, put them aside. We looked at the framing. We reinforced some pieces that were showing, you know, cracks or where it needed some help. And then we filled in each one to level the floor, put that same floor back down, stabilize that. So that room now has a level floor. Underneath here, we had concerns about the music room with the plaster, the big medallion in the middle, which weighs hundreds of pounds, and the kids are in there boom, 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 dancing and banging on drums and so forth. We wanted to address that immediately, you know, just for safety of the kids, so nothing would come crashing down on them. So we have a lot of work to do here. I want to keep doing very well because it probably means I'll be spending a few years here. But you know, again, I really thank everybody from the bottom of my heart to give me the opportunity to do this.